Hello, welcome everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. We're so happy to have you all join us, and our alumni are so excited to share with you a little bit more about their experience. I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off and started. So before we get into our panel discussion, I'm going to turn it over to our student advisor, Jolene, to give you just a quick, about 2-minute overview of what ISEP is and what it's like to study abroad with ISEP.
Thank you, Rory, and thank you all again for joining us. As Rory said, my name is Jolie and I'm one of ISEP's student advisors. For those of you who may not be aware, ISEP is a nonprofit organization and our mission is to provide accessible, affordable international experiences for everyone. Our programs are immersive and authentic, and we really try and focus on the intercultural engagement with local host communities. So ISEP offers summer, full year, and semester programs, and we have a network of over 300 universities in over 50 countries. The two main types of programs that we offer are exchange programs and direct programs. On direct programs, there is a specific program fee that allows for flexible housing and meal options, and you're guaranteed a placement when you apply on a direct program as long as you meet the eligibility requirements. On ISEP exchange programs, you pay your home university's tuition, housing, and meal costs, and you'd also list about up to 10 programs on your application to give you more flexibility, as there's different exchange space at each university. I'm sure that the health and safety is a big concern for all of you, particularly with regards to COVID-19. So I wanted to let you all know that ISEP students do receive health insurance, 24/7 emergency services, and access to an ISEP student services coordinator. In addition, there are usually some type of on-site health facilities and support services available for students. Some single occupancy housing options are also available at many of our sites. In the event that your program is canceled because of COVID-19 or whatever reason, ISEP does have policies in place to protect you, and we'll put some of those resources in the chat here for you to reference if you want to do so, or obviously send us an email if you have more questions. Once you're ready to apply, you should start by creating an account at www.isep.org/apply. From there, you'll be put in touch with one of our very knowledgeable advising team members to go over your goals for studying internationally, and they'll be able to advise on programs that might be a really good fit for you. Your advisor will also be able to walk you through the application process, and all of ISEP's student advisors will be available at the end of this panel discussion today. We'll have some breakout rooms so you can ask specific questions about a particular region or about the application. And from here, I'll turn it back over to Rory. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jolene. So before I introduce our wonderful panelists, I wanted to let all of our attendees know that you're welcome at any time to ask us and ask the panelists directly any questions that you have. They're definitely here to answer your questions. We're really excited to address whatever you really want to hear most about. So with that, I'll get started and introduce our three lovely panelists. So we have Danielle joining us. She is a student at University of North Colorado, and she studied abroad at University of Roehampton in London in the UK. We have Naledi, who is actually in New Zealand at the moment, and she was attending Howard University and studied abroad at Massey University in New Zealand. And we have Yulenda, who was a student at University of Johannesburg in South Africa and who studied abroad at Loyola in New Orleans in the US. So welcome to our three panelists. We're so excited to have you all. You've each had really amazing experiences and very much experiences where you wholeheartedly jumped in and really embraced your host culture. And I wanted to start off with just asking you a general question about why you chose to study abroad in the countries and on the programs that you did, and why you decided to go through ISEP. And I think I'll ask Danielle to get us started. So I'll turn it over to Danielle.
So I chose firstly ISEP because I studied just to study abroad a little bit last minute. It was my junior year, and I realized my senior year all of my classes could be electives credits. So I thought, ooh, that would be a really good time to study abroad. And so I quickly got my paperwork together and got my stuff together. And ISEP was just really accommodating to how fast I was had changed my education plan. So I was able to study abroad very easily without running across any problems. And I chose my program / country specifically because I was an English major in undergrad, and it just made really good sense to go to London to study English. And it's just the school was just really accommodating to what I wanted to study, the location, a really good fit.
That's awesome. And that's one thing. I think London is such an international city, but it also has all these amazing outlets to art, and somebody studying literature and writing. It has, I think I heard that it has like the most museums out of any major metropolitan city, where a lot of places you can get free admission as a student too. Did you find that to be the case, Danielle, that it was like really easy to get exposure and go to museums and other kind of free excursions while you were studying?
Yeah, like London, people tend to think is really expensive, which it definitely can be. But as a student, you're open to you have a lot of availability, a lot of student discounts. All museums are free. If you see shows on the West End, like I did, you can do lottery tickets, and my lowest ticket to a show was £8. So it's definitely more affordable than people would think.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And also, I'll just mention it here right now. Danielle was one of our ISEP bloggers, and she did write an awesome article about how to save money and do some inexpensive outings when you're in London. That's on our Facebook page if anyone wants to check that out. Naledi, I wanted to ask you a little bit too about why you landed on ISEP and why New Zealand.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with Danielle where when I started to study abroad, where I started to apply very last minute. And so at the time, what the programs that had options for me, ISEP was one of the only ones that had options for me for a country that I actually would have wanted to go to, as well as something within my program. So that's how I chose ISEP. And the reason I wanted to go to New Zealand was for three main reasons. One is I had never been to this part of the world and I knew very little about it. So it felt like a way to, cover my what's the word? Sorry. Curiosity.
Your
curiosity.
Yeah.
Sorry. And because my minor was sociology as well, I felt like there's a lot of new different cultures here, especially the Maori people. That was something I had a big interest in. And so I chose that. And also because I love nature, and New Zealand is so beautiful and it's green everywhere. And it's like everywhere is so close to the ocean and everything. So yeah, I definitely felt like, all those things came together to help me make the decision to come here.
That's an amazing intersection. And I think, so for anyone tuning in, Naledi is a film major and like she mentioned, a minor in sociology. So I do feel like that is like all these intersections coming together in a beautiful place with a wonderful culture in the Maori people, and so that's so cool to hear. Yulenda, I'd like to ask you the same question. What made you decide on Loyola, and why did you go through ISEP for your program?
Sure. So I was introduced to ISEP when I was volunteering at my home university in Johannesburg. At the international office. So I would just go there on a daily and just kind of help out with any international students. And that's how I got introduced to ISEP. So I did my research on it, and I really saw that, coming from South Africa, that's such a melting pot of cultures. I've always had a deep love for meeting people from different countries and just, talking to many different people. And when I found the opportunity that I would be able to kind of study it in a totally different place, I jumped at the opportunity. And in our selection of our universities, I saw New Orleans, and I had always had this kind of weird connection to New Orleans because I'd never been there, but I just decided that, you know what, this is an opportunity to see a place I've always wanted to see, and, you know, to study there would be even more amazing. So I applied for ISEP and I chose Loyola.
Oh, that's awesome. And one thing I like that you all mentioned was kind of how kind of a quick turnaround that you could have on your programs, and how it was able to come together relatively quickly, and you were able to make it work with your schedule and with your major requirements. Because I know we do, for our attendees listening in, they might be wondering, well, you know, can I still do this now with, you know, upcoming deadlines? Is this still something I can make happen? So I think that's kind of some words of encouragement to them that, like, yeah, it can come together, and you know, you might be a little bit more flexible, need to be more flexible, but you can definitely make it happen and fit in with your academic plans and your professional plans and all of those wonderful things. And I wanted to ask you each a little bit about, you know, a moment. You've all mentioned being attracted to the culture in these places and choosing them. Was there a moment during your study abroad experience in particular where you really felt like, wow, I'm really getting to connect with the local people, I'm starting to feel like I'm a part of this, and more maybe accepted in that way? And any moment like that really stood out to you?
Yeah, so I can, if that's okay.
Yes, I want to hear from all of you. So yeah, go ahead, Yulenda, and get us started.
Okay, no problem. So I was really big on volunteering when I was in the US. And one of the few volunteering opportunities that I got was I participated in a program that Loyola had that was in partnership with Crescent City. So what it was is this one morning, we all went to a church, and we set up a kind of like a restaurant, and we served a breakfast for the less fortunate in New Orleans. So that opportunity, it was so life-changing, because I really got to just sit down and, you know, talk to them and, you know, serve them a really warm and hearty breakfast. And they just gave me so much words of wisdom, and, you know, it just felt so good to be able to give back. And it was just one morning, you know, I had to wake up and just go to the church and just help out, prepare the food, and kind of make it a whole restaurant experience for them. So that was really, I felt like, okay, I'm so involved in the culture, and it was so heartwarming to know that that little thing that I did just kind of changed the day for them, and that was really amazing for me.
I love that you shared that, and I think that that's a great example of how you can get really involved in these communities, and you don't have to feel like you're there in you're studying abroad and it's going to be a temporary moment and that these people are then leaving. I think that you all have managed to have really establish and foster lifelong connections through your time abroad, and also have these experiences that are going to stay with you for a really long time. Naledi, I'd love to hear a little bit about what one of those experiences for you.
Yeah, definitely. Mine, I can say, was when New Zealand was starting to go into lockdown, where this number of cases started to go up. Because I'm living in a student accommodation, all of my flatmates decided to go home because they were all Kiwi students, right? So I was going to be the only one left in this apartment for Lord knows how long. And it was a very scary time because I'm obviously so far away from home. I can't even go home. And, you know, but then one of my flatmates and her family decided that they would invite me over to stay with them during lockdown. And so I ended up staying at like this off the grid property up in like the north part of New Zealand, with this Kiwi family, and they really just welcomed me in, and they were like, we just don't want you to be alone. And honestly, that's a moment I'll never forget, because they showed me really with the beauty of human hospitality and human kindness, you know, and it made me feel more a part of New Zealand culture than before.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think that's why, you know, connecting even with a family in that way gives you a whole other kind of even a more full picture of what the culture is like when you can interact not just with appear at school, but like a whole family in that way. That's
Yeah.
really very cool. And very cool that you were open to do it, doing that and reached out and that they were so receptive.
Yeah.
And that's, I think also people really show up when there's times of crisis too. And that's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely learned that. Because I didn't even ask them, they asked me, because I
Wow.
would have just been here alone, but
You're
they're
nervous. Yeah.
like, no, have that,
Wow.
So, yeah.
Those Kiwis, they're pretty cool. Yeah, that's some Kiwi hospitality for sure.
Yeah.
Danielle, I wanted to ask you too, like what was a moment that stood out for you in terms of feeling really immersed in the culture and really making connections with locals?
So I have the first one, the way I felt like connected to the university, that I wasn't just a study abroad student who they had generously let in, but that I was actually just a real student really going to this university, is I joined the sustainability club / organization Roehampton, and there they do a lot of eco-friendly environmentalism. They grow their own food and they raise chickens. And so what I did was I volunteered to help take care of the chickens once a week, which was a really fun experience because I was afraid of being in a university in a very urban environment and not having any connection to nature, because I just really being with nature, and that kind of thing. So it was a really good experience to work with the chickens, to work with people who really this was their passion. And so I was able to feel like a real student, whose interests weren't just, oh, I'm the study abroad student. No, I'm the student who takes care of the chickens. So it made me feel really integrated. But then also, personally, I was able to make a really good friend in one of my classes. She noticed that something was a little bit different about me. Like, she was just like, I could tell. And I was like, oh, really? And she was like, yeah. And she was like, if you need anything, let me know. And she ended up being one of my really good friends, and she really helped me figure out what the classes were requiring, because the grading is a little bit different in the UK. And she really told me how to be successful in a way that I did not realize was a way. And I was like, oh wow. And she also took time out of her week on Fridays to show me around things that she liked that weren't exactly touristy, but it was something that somebody who had lived in London their entire lives would be interested in, and really holes in the wall type places. We go to a bunch of Indian places that she really, really enjoyed, and there was the best Indian I ever had, because it was, it wasn't catering to tourists, but people who, are living there every day. And so I really felt like I was getting the London culture in a way that I'd never gotten before.
Yeah, that's something the guidebooks won't tell you, is those best hole in the wall places. It's you only know about those places after you've lived somewhere for a while. And I think even when we think about our own hometown, what we would show people is not usually what's in the guidebooks. It's something off the beaten path. So it's really awesome that you had somebody to walk you through and show you what it's like to be a local there and live like a local in that country. And you all have had that experience, which is really fantastic and cool to see. So my next question is kind of another biggish question, but I'd love to hear, okay. Yeah, this is a great one, actually. So we have a question from one of our attendees. So Lucy asked, how did you plan and research your program, and when did you get started?
So for me personally, it was coming in my junior year, and I knew I wanted to study my senior year. So the only time I could do it was fall. And what I was recommended is 1 year before you intend on leaving. And so I started my fall semester of my junior year to get going on that. And really, I had asked other friends who had been fortunate enough to study abroad what they liked and disliked. And I was really able to narrow down places I wanted to look. And really, I was just researching everything and being flexible to absolutely anything that could come my way, because I knew I was coming up on a deadline. And a lot of places didn't take a lot of programs don't take seniors because they can't promise getting your transcripts back in time. So picking ISEP was a really good option for me. And so I really emailed ISEP, I talked to my study abroad office, and it really narrowed down where I wanted to go and what my priorities were. So
That's awesome. Yeah, Yulenda, would you like to share how you went about it, the research?
Yeah, sure. So with my experience, it all also happened very quick. Just as Danielle said, I had to be super flexible because I was also in my final year, and at my university, it wasn't really heard of to, you know, do the exchange in your final year. You kind of do it in your second year. But I said to myself that this is something I really want to do. And I just had to, you know, take the time and whatever little amount of time I had and just do the research and find, you know, the school that would, you know, just kind of give me everything that would benefit what I was studying with mass communication. That's what I was majoring in. And that's how I chose Loyola. I just had to really, you know, just dig and see that the program that I was taking was also really helpful for my studies.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's a matter of the search really has to do with finding the right fit for their academics and what they need to graduate and keep on track in that way. And it can be a good way too of kind of limiting. I know it can be overwhelming, the amount of options that you have, but looking at that as kind of a guiding principle in what you end up choosing. And yeah, please feel free to ask you know, any more specific questions like that about any kind of fears and concerns you all have to our panelists. We're happy to hear them. I also want to ask a question. I'm wondering how all of you feel like you have changed and developed either personally or professionally through your study abroad experience. Anything that you feel like has changed you in a transformational way?
I can go.
Awesome.
On a personal level, I feel like one thing in one way that I've changed is I've kind of learned how to advocate for myself a little bit more, and like if I need help going out there and asking questions, just because studying abroad in such a tumultuous year, there was a lot of moments where I couldn't do things alone. It was impossible. And so I had to learn how to approach people and talk to people and advocate for myself. And that's kind of how I ended up even being in New Zealand up in this moment today, you know? So that's one thing I didn't think I'd come and experience here, or something I thought I'd learn being abroad, but it was a positive side effect, I guess.
That's such a huge like life skill, and I think that's one of the things of studying abroad. You really sharpens all of these things, and being an advocate for yourself, especially when you're in a foreign country, is really hard. But once you feel like you can do it in a country where you're still very unfamiliar with the systems and the policies and that kind of thing, and you can really advocate for yourself, it gives you that confidence in other areas of life too.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. What about for you, Danielle? How do you feel like it changed you either personally or professionally or academically?
So professionally, it really helped me in two ways. The first is when I was an ISEP blogger, I really love travel writing. It really taught me how to look out for those things that like I would see, but somebody who had never been out of the US wouldn't see, and really helped me like be more observant as to my surroundings, and you know, what is interesting to me might not be interesting to the next person, what I might not be interested in, what might be something really cool for somebody else. It made me really aware of everything London had to offer. But also secondly, because of COVID, like traveling is less possible and stuff like, and so I realized travel writing might not always be viable. So I kind of, was thinking about other things. And so what also came up is I actually got hurt in the UK. Nothing serious, but I did have to go to accident and emergency, the ER there. And there I went through their healthcare system, and it was super easy. It was really interesting to learn how they do their healthcare system versus how we do in the US. And so when I came back, I really thought about my time going through their healthcare system, and I thought, ooh, what's different? How could we implement stuff from there? What could be implemented there? Like, it was just a really interesting concept. So I just applied to my for my master's in public administration with a concentration like healthcare policy and comparative health systems. And so it really sparked my interest into a thing that I never thought that I'd ever be interested in. I did not think I would be into the nitty-gritty of how policy works, but it really, I thought I'd be travel writing my entire life, but this really opened my eyes up to something that is interesting to look at.
That's so cool. And I think that that open-mindedness that you had too, and being willing to kind of switch directions, is definitely something that Study Abroad brings out in you and encourages you to do more of. Yulenda, how do you feel like you either changed personally or developed and kind of took different steps academically or professionally from your experience?
Yeah, so for me, during my time when I was studying abroad, you know, I thought I knew what independence was. I thought, you know, I was super independent, but as soon as I got there and, you know, I spent the time that I did, I really realized how much it takes to just know that you can depend on yourself. And even if you are alone, like, you're gonna be okay. You just have to believe that you can do this, because there are times when, you know, it does get overwhelming that I'm alone. I have no family around here, but you know, you really just have to realize that, you know, it's such a big step in your life, and you're going to be okay. Just take it, you know, day by day, and you really just learn how to speak up for yourself and how to stand for yourself. And it changed my perspective of that nothing is really impossible, and you can literally do what you want to do, and as long as you dream big enough, it's going to be possible. It's going to happen. So it really influenced the way that I dream and the things I want to do in life. And yeah, it was really good to show me that if you just open your mind and you open yourself to meeting new people, anything can happen.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is you find yourself in this foreign country and you're like, I didn't know I was going to be here. I didn't know that my life would take this turn. And then you kind of feel like if you remain open, that all these different opportunities can come to you, and things that you didn't expect at first. So we actually have a wonderful question from Lucy about living situations. I think this is a really good one. So I guess if all of you could just give a brief description of what your living situation was like where you studied, because I know it definitely varies by location. What was it like for you, Danielle? What kind of housing were you in?
So the best way I can describe this is the Hogwarts house system, if you're familiar with Harry Potter.
I love the reference.
You get assigned to because there's 4 colleges within our university, the University of Roehampton, and you get assigned to one of those based on your degree is in. And for study abroad students, that's a little bit different because you're just taking whatever you really want to or whatever. So they can't really count on that. So they just put you somewhere. But I thought I was really fortunate to be placed in Froebel College, which was really fun. You do dinners as a flat, you do college dinners. It's really the Harry Potter experience. And so yeah, you do stay in dorms, and you have a single room, and it was a really magical experience, frankly.
That's wonderful. And so that you have a single room option too. That's really good. I know that's a lot of people wonder about that right now. So that's really great to hear. What was it like for you, Naledi? What was your housing situation like?
I live in student accommodation, and here it's kind of like a flat or an apartment situation where it's like a building with like 9 floors, and there's different room options. You can choose to have a studio or a 3-bedroom or a 5-bedroom. I chose the 5-bedroom. And we have like a nice big lounge area and a kitchen space, and everyone has their own bedroom, and we share a bathroom. Honestly, I was a little unsure about that because I'd never shared with this many people, and like sharing a space and a bathroom. But honestly, like, it's been such a good experience where like everyone is respects one another, cleans up after themselves, So yeah, and there's a great view, which I have to say. So yeah, it's kind of like a flat situation or like an apartment situation. Yeah.
That's a good thing about being on top of in a building with multi-levels, is sometimes you can get a really good cool view. Yulenda, what about your housing situation?
So what our housing situation was, we had it was a room, and we had technically 2 bedrooms with 2 beds, and then we shared the common room and the bathroom. But it was my first time having a roommate, so it was very interesting. I went in kind of like, I don't know if this is gonna work, but we actually became the best of friends, and we had, us and the suite mates, we had a cleaning routine, like a whole schedule. So it all worked out pretty well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think for Lucy or anyone listening, like, there is a lot of flexibility. There's different options depending on the university you're looking at. And so if you really want a single room, but I'd say like roommates are also a great way of meeting people when you're in a new country, and they can become your best friends and the people you go grocery shopping with. So it can be turn out to be a really good thing. So if there's not any last questions, I think I might end our panel discussion for the day, and it's been wonderful hearing from Danielle and Yulenda and Naledi. They've have had really amazing experiences, and I appreciate you all being so open with sharing with anyone listening.